Have you ever fallen off of a bike before? There was one time about 20 years or so ago. Man, I'm old. When I was a kid, I was riding my bike around this oak tree that was in our driveway at my parents' house. And there's this one tight corner that I would always be careful on. I think there were acorns all over the ground. My tires caught the acorns and I slipped and fell to the ground. I think I scraped up my hand or something like that. And yeah, it kind of hurt, and I was like, I don't know if I want to get back on the bike again. But I really liked riding my bike, so I got back on it again. So whether you've fallen off your bike or maybe you just tripped and fallen to the ground at one point in your life, we always get back up, right? It's not like I'm in my parents' driveway right now like...
And remember to choose Christ every single day, because in the end, that's what Christianity is really all about.
That would be a little silly, wouldn't it? But you know what else is kind of silly? Staying away from Jesus after you sin. Especially if it's a really bad sin. We have this tendency to not want to go near Jesus. We want to make ourselves good, prove that we won't do it again before we come back to Jesus. But there's a verse in Proverbs that's rather interesting. For a righteous man may fall 7 times and gets back up again, but the wicked stumbles in times of calamity. Wait a minute. What does it mean righteous people falling? I thought righteous people were perfect. They didn't make mistakes. The righteous men that we see in the Bible, they never made any mistakes, right? Right? I mean, Adam and Eve were perfect, weren't they? And they still gave into temptation, and because of that, we're all sinful now. So it doesn't matter if you're perfect or sinful, you still need God in your life either way. There's one particular biblical character who messed up pretty bad, and he is called a man after God's own heart. And that man was David. Yes, the same David who wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." It's the same David who fought David and Goliath and stood up for God when no one else would. Well, there was one time he was king. He was walking along his rooftop. He saw a woman bathing on her rooftop and was like, wowzers. And I guess he liked what he saw because he had her come to the palace so he could sleep with her. And then she came back saying, "Hey David, I'm preggers," which is a problem because she was married to a guy named Uriah, whom David brought from war so he can sleep with his wife and make Uriah think the baby's his. But Uriah didn't want to do that because his fellow soldiers weren't able to enjoy their wives, so why should he enjoy their wives? He slept on the ground outside instead, I think. David even tried getting him drunk so he can do it, but Uriah still wouldn't sleep with his wife. So David decided to have him killed in battle, telling all the troops to stand back, guaranteeing his death. And it stinks because Uriah is the one that brought the message to the commander, who was just walking back into the war carrying his death sentence. Smooth move, David. Of course, he ends up dying, so David brings Uriah into the palace to live with him. What a considerate thing to do. But then the prophet at the time, Nathan, came to David with a story illustrating what David had done and how great his sin was. But this is the key though. David realized that he committed a great sin. And as soon as this was brought to attention, he immediately went back to God. That's when David wrote the Psalms, "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." That's kind of cool. You could read that whole chapter. There's even a little subnote saying that this was the psalm that he wrote after his sin with Bathsheba. But after that, he was considered a man after God's own heart. Yeah, he fell pretty hard, but the thing is, he got back up. And that is the secret to having a successful Christian walk. Because you can't make yourself holy, you can't have it be forgiven without Jesus. So there's nowhere else you can go. You can only go to him. Because in the verse, who falls? The righteous fall and the wicked stumble. Except the righteous ones are the ones who are getting up. The wicked ones are the ones staying down. It's the follower of Christ who knows that even though they've committed a sin, they know they have an advocate with the Father who will forgive them of their sins. I know many of you probably struggle with lust. And maybe you're not struggling with lust. Maybe it's drugs, alcohol, or maybe something else. I don't know. And maybe you felt like there was no hope, that whatever the sin is, it just has a hold of you, you're chained to the ground, and there's no way you're getting out. But Jesus died for you so those chains can be broken. And when it comes to praying for deliverance from sin, that's not something that God says no to. He will always say yes to that. But I promise you guys, keep getting up and you will see Jesus working in your life in a way that you never thought possible. But you gotta believe that he can do this. Jesus is a real person. This isn't fairy tales. It's not just stories. And I am living proof of that. I'm not the same man who I was yesterday. So what are you waiting for? Yeah, you fell off the bike? Get back on the bike and keep riding. Because Jesus is there waiting to pick you up. He's not some far off distance waiting for you to come to him. He's right by your side saying, "Shall we continue?" So take that nail-scarred hand of his. He'll lead you where you need to go. With that in mind, remember to choose Christ every single day. Because in the end, that's what Christianity is really all about. See ya.